lay out why it is you're pushing this amendment and where it stands in the country right now.
Sure. Well, you know, Amy, when we launched this campaign the day of the Citizens United ruling, there were plenty of skeptics who thought it couldn't be built. This movement wouldn't have any staying power. It was too difficult. And I think we've proven with our allies in the field, Common Cause, Public Citizen, People for the American Way, Move to Amend, and many others, that those skeptics are now wrong. 11 states are on record calling for a constitutional amendment. 500-plus cities and towns across the country. Members of Congress, business leaders, religious leaders, and the President of the United States have all come out in support of this. And we need this amendment because the only way to overturn a United States Supreme Court ruling is through a constitutional amendment or waiting for a new majority of the Supreme Court to do so. And the people understand in this country that the Supreme Court is wrong on this basic question. Corporations are not people. They do not breathe. They do not think. They do not have a conscience. They're artificial entities that we create, and people should govern over corporations, not the other way around.
And so the constitutional amendment says exactly what?
Well, there are various proposals out there, but there are two major problems that the constitutional amendment needs to address. First, it needs to address the point that Congress and the states shall have the authority to limit overall campaign spending and campaign contributions. This dates back to a 1976 ruling, Buckley v. Vallejo, which equated money with speech and set forth this system of unlimited campaign spending we have today. The other problem is the problem of corporations being treated as people under the Constitution. These corporations argue in court cases after court cases that they, in fact, have the rights of people, natural persons, and those arguments are being used to strike down public interest laws protecting our environment, our health care, consumer rights, civil rights, and now our elections. And we need to address both problems via these amendment bills.
So, Mark Schmidt, can you explain why it is that you're opposed to efforts at a constitutional amendment?
Sure, and I'm glad to be here. I've always viewed. I'm not surprised that the constitutional amendment has caught on. I wasn't the kind of skeptic that John describes. I think it's easy to describe. I think it's easy to get people to sign a petition for it because it sounds very clear cut. I view it as a real distraction from some real progress that we can make on money in politics, because while you can build a movement around there are like 17 different versions of the amendment, while you could build a movement around this concept, the message it sends is we can't do anything until we have a constitutional amendment, and under the current circumstances, we can't do anything until we have a constitutional amendment is exactly the same as saying we can't do anything. And so I think that's just sending the wrong signal to people and overlooking the tremendous progress that's actually being made, which John knows because he was there at the birth of it, really, on public financing that offsets the role of big money from individuals and big money from corporations, which really are not dramatically different, whether Sheldon Adelson writes money as an individual or through his corporate entity. It really doesn't matter all that much, but we can offset that money with good public financing, such as in New York City, Arizona, Connecticut. These systems are popular, they're resilient, they withstand legal challenges, and that's really where the energy ought to be focused at this point.
But why can't, Mark Schmidt, why can't these efforts take place in conjunction with an effort to push through the constitutional amendment?
Well, as long as, to the extent that you're making clear that you don't need the constitutional amendment to make some progress, it's not the worst thing in the world. A lot of it depends on which amendment it is. I don't have a problem with an amendment that overturns Buckley v. Vallejo and says that we can limit overall spending on a campaign as well as contributions. The corporate personhood issue is a lot more complicated. I mean, a simple example of it is John works for an organization called Free Speech for the People Incorporated. It's a corporation. Corporations are how we organize everything in American society. It's how political parties are incorporated. It's really the form of organization we use. And at some level, I work for a corporation. Many of these corporations are actually organized for the purpose of political speech.
So in a sense,
so I think it's a pretty big leap, and goes way beyond what actually happened in Citizens United, in which corporate personhood is a very tangential concept to Citizens United.